Mic test, 1, 2, 3. Mic test, 1, 2, 3. Hmm. Mic test.
For Horus Heresy, Garrett, Burden of Duty by James Swanwick. In the skies above Terra, the forces of the Imperial had found the birth world of the human species turned into ash. The surface pockmarked by composites in its high place. It was a clenched fist of iron and stone, and from it rose spindly orbital elevator towers and a thruster trail heading past. The planet was haloed by platforms and way stations, varying size and complexity, littering the low orbit of the gravity null clusters of the Lagrange points. Ships crossed between them like motes of mercury over black velvet, engine exhausts blowing. A shroud of ever-moving armor filled without terror. Constructs as large as continents drifting as if they were gargantuan heads. Some were gunnery complexes, little more than free floating weapons aimed outwards into the void, like cannons atop ancient castle battlements. Others were command and control facilities, staging posts, shipyards and star dogs bristled with battle vessels of every mark and talent, old hulls being refitted with new weapons. Some orbitals were the private habitats of imperial nobles, dignitaries, but even their exalted status did not protect them from the order of fortification. No one was exempt from the dictates the Emperor had handed down.
What?
Terra was on a war footing, donning her chainmail and sharpening her blades, watching, waiting. Out, past the orbit of Luna, secondary and tertiary lines of defense were already in place. Fields of autonomous cannon drones and sensor webs floated in the darkness. Asteroids dragged in by tenders to the belt beyond Mars formed the bastions of the Ardent Reef, the Hecate Shoal, and other portcullis groups. They prepared for the day they knew would come, the day when the sky would brim with the battle fleets of Horus Lupercal's rebellion. The turncoat war master, first among equals of the Emperor's Primarch sons, had never let his gaze fall from heaven. The planet was more than just a spiritual hub, more than the capital world and origin point of mankind. Pragmatic tacticians could say that a successful war against the Emperor might never even need to reach the light of Sol. But no one truly believed Horus would conquer. This was his father's house. If he did not burn it or claim it for himself, then he could never claim that ultimate victory. This the Emperor knew full well, and so he claimed it. The architect of the fortification was one seemingly born for something. Rogel Dawn, most steadfast and unswerving of the Emperor's sons, Primarch of the 7th Legionis Astartes, the Imperial Fists. It was said that Dawn was the greatest master of defensive strategy in the galaxy, and that a stronghold designed by the Fists would never be reached. Horus would put that thing to test. Dawn oversaw the great reinforcement effort of his flagship and star fortress, the mighty Phalanx. The size of a small moon, it was forced to remain clear of Terra's shipping, for fear that its great mass would exert a tidal pull. Standing sentinel over the ongoing work of the defenses, the Star Fortress was a grand artifice of gold. Ramparts and towers, cathedral-like halls, acres of domes covered its flanks. Phalanx was not only the flagship of the 7th Legion, but also their home, with room for hundreds of thousands of warriors and support servants in its habitat field. Lines of military traffic and freighters dotted the approach. A complex dance of starships moving back and forth under Dawn's supreme. And among them, lost in the mess of Auspex returns, radiation backscatter, a small shuttle pod crept closer on stealthy howls. The ship was barely worthy of it. No bigger than a land cruiser, the shuttle pod carried only a single bomb, a rudimentary drive system, and auto-navigator. What other space remained inside the scene of scan-resistant hull was packed with sensor baffles and reflex shield devices. Craft such as this were typically deployed by Imperial agents or the killers of the Officio Assassinorum. But in this instance, the passenger was a remarkably hidden on a spiral in toward the hull. Autonomic systems waiting to the last possible second, fire braking processes. Magna grapples extended and drew the pod alarm toward the span, Stealth protocol ran through the craft's cogitated, misdirecting the docking sensors and masking the unscheduled flight. The window of opportunity was only a few moments, but still unnoticed by the Imperial forces. Trooper and their vessel, a ghost like the other one. Its sole function completed, the shuttle pod disengaged and drifted away, blending back into the clutter of the space lake. The lone passenger risked a single communication, a burst transmission message encrypted on a deep-level box channel. There would be no reply. One signal alone was enough to chance connect. The warrior of the long shadows. The bulk of his ghost-grey power armor. He wore a large, thin robe of metallic material over him, giving him the look of a monastic figure out of old work. Putting it close, he activated the device so that it could see the surface of the earth.
Oh my god, this is the...
It became a glassy thing, a shape disrupted as if seen through a rain-slick window. The technology was rare, fragile, but the falsehood could shroud even an armored giant for parts of himself. Beneath them, Nathaniel Garrow grimaced. He did not approve of such clandestine acts, but he had no other choice. He was here on the direct command of Malcador the Sigilite, the regent of Terra. Once a battle captain of the Death Guard Legion, Garrow had long...
Okay guys, now I can drive. Let's see.
What some called a knight errant, one of Malcador's covert agents, amidst the turmoil of galactic civil. He moved with the beam past by key ordinary column, shifting from point to point with the eyes of the researchers or Imperial Fist legionaries turned away. Garrow crossed the great hall of victories, following the lines with the statue guard and the gallery of heroes. He had been aboard the Phalanx once before, but under very different circumstances. Then Garrow had been a guest of the 70s, plucked from certain death by Rogel Dawn himself. It sat poorly with him that his return came under a shroud of secrecy. The corridors and chambers of the flagship were magnificent works of functional martial art, heavy with banners from 100,000 victories, lined with works of art that celebrated Dawn's legion and the high ideals of the Imperium. They were a glorious sight. For the duration of this mission, he considered himself in enemy territory and would act accordingly. The only exception he had made to his usual preparation was to come bearing only his sword, Libertas. Garrow had left his bolt gun behind. It signified that he would not, could not, shed blood in the prosecution of this duty. But if he were discovered now, he doubted that the Imperial Fist would extend him the same. Careful to remain unseen by his fellow. Garrow let the bolster of his weight carry him slowly to the air. The inner hall signifies to start. The warriors objected to sorry. On the lower decks, toward the flagship's gargantuan engine. The chamber was known only as its A huge oval gate, titanium blue, ringed with locking devices, rose up before him. Garrow's eyes caught the symbol etched into the metal above the latch, a mailed fist against a white disc, the emblem of the Seventh. Rogel Dawn himself had struck that sign when this door had been closed, and if Garrow opened it, it would be Dawn. Inside the sealed chamber, behind walls of deadening black phase iron and psychic countermeasures for the dark age of technology, the Primarch of the Imperial Fists had willfully imprisoned a cadre of his own sons. They had committed no crime, done nothing to dishonor their brethren. These were steadfast warriors taken from frontline battle duties, men ordered to disarm and stand down by the father of their legion. They were Imperial Fists, somber and steadfast in character, and to every last degree Dawn's true self. Yet they had accepted their Primarch's command without question. The only offense that these legionaries had committed was to be cursed with the gifts of the war. Lexicanium, Codicia, or Epistolary. They were the battle brothers of the Librarius, trained to use the power of their minds as a weapon. The Emperor's passing in the East, after the conclave of Nicaea, had ended that service in a single moment. In the wake of the Sorcerer Primarch Magnus the Red's dalliances with the mercurial powers of the war, their weapons had been denied. The Emperor's orders forbade all use of psionic powers among the legions, and now Dawn's librarians spent their long days in quiet meditation, isolated from their kinsmen and their future uncertain. Garrow reached into a pouch on his belt, removing a device that Malcador himself had pressed into his hand. The origin of the small crystalline object
Hello.
but Garrow could not entirely banish the feeling that it was somehow a When he had questioned Regent of Terra on suspicion, Malcador had said nothing, merely holding him in one stood. The device began its work. The seals holding the gate shut was putting in swift order under its influence. The action did not go. Outposts reveal a pair of armed gun-circled yellow fists. The machine slaves dithered, struggling to track the cloaked warrior. Barrow did not give them time. He gave the services no opportunity to raise the alarm before he attacked. Their neural cords severed, the mindless machines stumbled and crashed, leaving them where they fell. Garrow turned back to the gate at the last of the seals.
I think I'll listen to this morning. I'm gonna switch.
Garrow, Oath of Hope. Written by James Swallow. Performed by Toby London. Calth was a world ablaze. Deep in the Viridian system, beneath the hard light of a wounded sun, war like no other had come to the planet. A war that echoed across the galaxy. A war that would change the face of humankind forever. Across the dying fields of blackened grasses, in the rubble of silent cities, through canyons of dark rock and ice-grimed sands, brother, the Ultramarines, the sons of the great tactician Primarch Repute Guliman, had come to the Viridian system to marshal their forces for battle. Their commander, ever the loyal soldier of the Imperialists, asked the best of the 13th Legionnaires Astartes, and their auxiliaries from the Ultramar regiments of the Imperial Army. This he did under the orders of his brother, the War Master Horus Lupercal. This Guliman did without doubt or question. His fealty was repaid with treason of the most odious sort. For the battle to come, the battle Horus told him to prepare for, instead arrived shrieking from the skies on trails of blood. The warriors of Lorgar's 17th Legion, the zealot word-bearers, had come to kill. And with their oaths to the Emperor of Mankind broken, their new turncoat loyalty to Horus still painted fresh upon their blood-dark armor, the word-bearers stabbed their brothers in the back and scattered the Ultramarines to the points of the compass. Now, fire cradled Calth in molten talons of churning gas. Great streams of glowing color that reached around the latitudes and raked the heavens. The aftershock of massed salvos of thermoplasma weapons and fusion bombs had torn into the planet's atmosphere. The thin layer of fragile sky was broken. The damage was irreversible. No untainted breath of Calth's air would remain, as each new dawn brought it closer to death. Amid the flames, Lieutenant Olin wondered if he would live to meet the next sunrise. Like his men, Olin was born on Espandor, which, along with Calth, was one of many worlds in the Ultramar coalition. And, like them, he had shared the desire to stand in defense of his Imperium and his Emperor. Olin wore the sigils of the Aquila and of Ultramar with pride. While he did not have the fortitude to have become an Astartes of the Ultramarines, he did his part nonetheless. And somehow, even in the darkest of days during the battles of the Great Crusade, Olin had never been in fear for his life. He did not consider this arrogance. It was only that he had never faced an enemy so powerful that he could not be defeated by Ultramar courage. At least, not until this day. numerous Astartes in battle, and there had never been cause to consider that such a thing might even occur. The mere thought of it was foolish. That a single space marine might rebel against his liege lord was impossible to comprehend, and to suggest that an entire legion, or even a primarch, could turn upon the emperor for their own glory. If any of his troopers had said such a thing, Oland's laughter would have drowned them out. The only laughter now came from their killers.
his battle bow flaring open behind him, his bolt pistol aimed and ready. The captain raised the giant mailed glove of his power fist and punched the sky.
Hold the line, my kinsman, for courage and honor!
Bolt fire and las beams cut at the rails of the stone ground as the dawn finally broke. Rubio raced into the fray to meet the hordes of the enemy. Garrow was at the Ultramarine's side, his silver blade cutting arcs through the air to cleave chests and take heads. The massive hood of the makeshift V mast, pitiful remnants of armor, died in their droves. Gaius led the way, at the very tip of the arrowhead that was the Astartes blockade. The cultists, screaming and shivering in the frigid cold, were pushed on to greater and greater heights of bloodthirst. There was a mad tumult, and their only respite would be to die choking the guns of the loyalist Space Marines. Captain Gaius fought deep, as an army of insane zealots rode over him in a wave. There were so many of them that by sheer weight of they toppled Rubio's commander from his feet, slamming into the steel rails crisscrossing the ground. For long seconds, the heap of screaming, murderous cultists heaved and shivered, and finally exploded outwards as Gaius burst free of their suffocating grip. Every hammer blow strike from his fists killed and brittle. Stepped to his post, his captain's example, ignoring the torrent of pain that lanced through his skull. He tried to ignore it. He did not. Garrow fought hard, the lone warrior's grey armor now smeared with blood and smoke. Best of keen, and every stroke of his sword, every bolt shell expended, was placed where it would do the maximum amount of damage. On Garrow's ornate chestplate, and once again wondered who this man might be. He fought with the poise and cold lethality of a veteran. Then he spun in place and stabbed out with his sword toward a ridge in the middle distance.
There! This is only the precursor! Enemy incoming! Close the line!
The Ultramarine heard a sound like the grinding of gigantic great-toothed gears, and from behind the ridgeline emerged a great construct of steel and cable, armor and brass. It clattered across the stone, four-jointed, piston-hissing legs, crab-walking as it crushed the unwary in its path. An angular turret thrust up from the center of the mast, overloaded with gun cupolars and fearsome blades protruding in a spine-like formation. It had a main cannon made of black iron, the yawning muzzle dripping with penitent chains. The machine moved like it was alive. Its flanks arterial red, dressed in the ebon detailing of the word-bearers. It tainted the ground underfoot with every heavy step. As one, the Ultramarines turned their fire upon it, and if anything, the attack seemed to enrage them. Rubio watched as it rocked forward, broke into a skittering run, far faster than something of such bulk should ever have moved. Mass-reactive bolt shells, plasma rounds, and short-range missile impacts all found their mark on the war machine, ripping into it, but on it came, catching a fire, bearing down on the central barricade, and the captain of the 21st.
Gaius!
Rubio's warning split the air, but too late. Things fell into place. Too late, he saw the moment unfolding once again. Battle, red in blade, black in shell. He broke off and threw himself into a heedless, headlong charge, swatting aside any enemy that dared to block his path. He had to stop it. He knew what was coming, and he had to stop it. Gaius's helmet turned and, as the captain registered Rubio's cry, saw him coming. But then the battle engine's cannon spoke, and Rubio was ripped from the ground by the relay impact. He tumbled and spun, landing hard with a bone-shaking crash that brought the taste of copper to his lips. He tried to rise, and there before him, he saw a metallic leg collide with his captain's chest and ram him down. mask and his helmet, and he silently cursed the war engine as it ended the life of another loyal Skeel and Terran. It howled and grumbled as it half stumbled on legs damaged by sustained fire. One metal limb was hanging lifeless from oil-spitting hinges. Constructs fought up towards the defenders around the tunnel mouth. It reared up, and the Astartes caught sight of Brother Rubio as he fought to drag the captain's battered body into cover. The construct hooted and went for him, intent on ending the Ultramarine's life as brutally as his captain's. No, snarled Garrow, and he bounded from a collapsed marble column, boots crunching on broken stones as he marshaled his strength to leap high. The warrior in storm dark armor led with his sword, and landed with a resonant clang atop the traitor engine's turret. It rocked and twisted like a bear attacked by a wolf, trying to dislodge him. Garrow spun the length of Libertas around his gauntlets and plunged the point of the power sword into the apex of the turret, where a screaming demonic mask glared out with eyes of burning black. Oily fluids jetting from the savage cut, and the machine shook, almost as if it were in agony. Ultramarines from the company's Devastator squads were closing. Heavy las cannons, plasma weapons, and multi-melters in their mailed fists. His close-quarter attack was enough to distract the machine, giving Rubio time to get clear and the Devastators the moment they needed.
Kill this thing!
Garrow shouted into his box, struggling to hold on.
Do it now!
An inferno of white heat, las beams, and rocket strikes engulfed the traitor engine, and it recoiled. The Astartes heard an echoing rattle that was almost a screech, before the quadruped tank finally threw him off in its shuddering death. Garrow landed hard, still clutching his sword, and rolled behind a slab of rock creep as the machine met its end. The detonation broke the lines of the few cultists still standing, and those not executed by bolt fire from Rubio's kinsmen died from the force of the explosive shockwave. As Garrow pulled himself to his feet, silence fell, the dead air leaden and threatening. He took a moment to climb atop the remains of the shattered barricade where Captain Gaius had briefly stood. From this vantage point, Garrow could see out across the ridgeline to where the next wave of the enemy was massing. The optics in his helmet picked out targets at a distance, matching silhouettes to known threat vectors. Word bearers. The army of the Primarch Lorgar, his most dedicated warrior fanatics, and until recently, men considered kindred battle brothers under the aegis of the Emperor of Mankind. Cold, repellent rage rose in Garrow's chest as he beheld them. Was there no end to the spread of traitors' rot through the legions of the Adeptus Astartes? The sons of Horus, the World Eaters, the Emperor's children, even his own Death Guard, all had taken the turncoat path against the will of the Emperor. Against his divine will. And now the word-bearers would be counted among the renegades, damned forever for their rebellion, their betrayal marked in the blood of the Ultramarines. His aspect grim, Garrow stepped down and turned away. They were coming, and in a force far greater than the remnants of the 21st Company could muster. Gaius's men would die defending the tunnel to Numinus, and the route to the city would be lost. It was inevitable. But it was not his concern. Garrow's objective lay elsewhere. Brother Rubio's head was bowed over the body of Captain Gaius as Garrow approached. The Ultramarine crossed his heavy ceramite gauntlets over his chest in the sign of the Imperial Aquila, and then saluted again, this time in the old pre-unification manner, a balled fist to his chest. Rubio glanced at him, and Garrow imagined he felt the warrior's angry eyes glaring out through the ruby lenses of his helmet. My captain is dead. He gave his life with nobility. Aye. Garrow nodded. That he did. But you could have prevented this. Rubio reacted as if he had been struck, stiffening in shock. You dare! I know what you are, brother. What you are capable of. I know what you once were before Nicaea. Before you gave up your hood and your blade. A psycho. Garrow gestured at the corpse. You could have mind-spoken to him. You might even have been able to shield Gaius. Yet you did not. Rubio's manner shifted, and he advanced to the other Astartes. I have my orders. I will not challenge the decree. And yet, even as he spoke, Garrow heard the conflict churning beneath the surface of Rubio's words. The Ultramarine was caught between bonds of loyalty to brethren and company, and his oath to Primarch and Emperor. What torment it was to know that one had been sacrificed to the demand of the other. Garrow knew that pain only too well. My captain is dead. Whatever you wanted with him, Knight-errant, you came too late. I didn't come to Calph for Gaius. I came for you, Tylos Rubio, under orders from Malcador the Sigillite. He has commanded me to gather a host of warriors from across the legions and bring them to the Imperial Palace. You are the first. And if my mission is to be fulfilled, we must leave now. Rubio's anger ebbed, and he shook his head, disbelieving. What you ask is impossible. Not so. Garrow mirrored his gesture. Time is against us, and we must move quickly. If the word-bearers launch their attack, we will be trapped here. I need only transmit a machine call signal to summon my Stormbird. We will recover to my ship, and then... No! No! You would have me leave the side of my sworn battle brothers in their darkest hour? I refuse. It is the Sigillite's command. His word is the Emperor's word. The other Astartes was silent for a long moment. The Sigillite's command be damned. You give me no recourse, Garrow. And so, on my honor as a son of Macragge, I choose to defy it. Even if it means I will perish here, even if you color me a rebel like Lorgar's turncoats, I defy it. Garrow looked down at the sword in his hand. The impassive visage of his battle helmet reflected in the sheen of the adamantine blade. The fire in the Ultramarine's heart burned strong, and the other warrior felt the echo of it in himself. If their roles had been reversed, Rubio's words would have been his own. He could find no fault with them. Then I choose to stand with you. We will embrace defiance together. Shoulder to shoulder, they met the advance of the traitor Astartes with a sound like unleashed thunder. The absolute ferocity of the assault was a shocking, brutal thing, breaking in a wave of fire and blood across the barricades and the dug-in lines of the defenders. The word-bearers threw themselves into the attack with a mad fervor that outstripped even the crazed offensive of the cultist hordes. Every Ultramarine's gun was discharged, but for each of them, there were 5 times that number of Lorgar's fanatic warriors, and the punishing momentum of their onslaught tore through the barriers, shattering the lines and riding forward in a surge of blackened armor. The word-bearers had always been known for their extremist militant behaviors. During the years of the Great Crusade to reunite the lost colonies of humankind, many worlds that had fallen under the shadow of the 17th Legion had felt their wrath. Those who did not pay proper obeisance to the Emperor were punished mercilessly, so much so that the Master of Mankind had personally rebuked their Primarch Lorgar, chastising him for fostering idolatry of his father and violence beyond the pale. Some believed Lorgar and his Legion had heeded these lessons, but now it seemed clear that if anything they had rejected their lord and found a new path, one of cruelty and carnage, fueled by raw hate and new gods. Garrow's blade sang, and his bolter roared as the battle lines crossed and recrossed. He silenced the inner voice that rebelled at the notion of fighting fellow Astartes and bore down, reminding himself that these turncoats were no longer worthy of that name. They were traitors of the most base nature. The armor of the Word-Bearers, usually a uniform ebon, was deliberately smeared with what could only be human blood. The Legion symbol of a burning book upon their shoulder pauldrons had been daubed over with an 8-point star and the crude rendition of a screaming face. This self-desecration only stoked Garrow's anger higher, and he fought with righteous fury, striking down traitors with sweeps of his sword and blasts of bolt shells. Close by, Rubio released bursts of bolter fire that blasted attacking warriors back in spiraling, bloody heaps. But for each man they put down, more took his place. Garrow's gorge rose as he saw a group of Word-Bearers kill an Ultramarine with a hurricane of storm bolters. To his disgust, even when the Astartes fell dead to the ground, they continued to fire into his body, unloading round after round into the twitching mess of the corpse. And as they did so, he heard them laughing. The wicked malice was like nothing Garrow had ever seen from another Astartes. The Word-Bearers took delight in what they were doing, savoring it. He felt sickened inside. They keep coming. Eyes of terror. Have they brought the whole Legion to fight us? This will not end well, but in his name we will make them pay for every step of their advance. Ave Imperator! Garrow shouted the battle cry and killed another traitor kid, but his words rang hollow. All around, the defenders were running low on ammunition, pacing each shot, making every bolt and beam count, while the Word-Bearers were wild in their abandon, strafing the barricades and filling the air with the stench of promethium and spent cordite. The press of death was close at hand, and finally, as a fresh surge of attackers pushed forward, the cry went up among the lines of the Ultramarines.
Fall back! To the tunnel! Close up and fall back!
Garrow followed, silently cursing circumstance as he sprinted out of the icy air and into the gloomy, frost-rimed stone of the rail tunnel. Behind him, the Word-Bearers shouted their hate and came running. Rubio beckoned Garrow toward him, and his blood ran cold as he spied a gathering of hulking, angular shapes emerging from amid the howling lines of the traitors. They pushed forward, shouldering their own men aside, bringing up heavy, multi-barreled weapons bristling with firepower. Terminators! In steady, iron-limbed lockstep, the towering, thick-set figures advanced. Twice the mass of any line Astartes, the suits of Terminator armor lumbered forward, effortlessly dismissing the rain of las bolts and mass reactive shells sleeting from their war gear. Rubio ranged around, but it quickly became clear that there were not enough heavy weapons to put down the line of steel ceramite leviathans. Crack grenades pushed them back, but only for a moment. The line advanced on, breaching barricade after barricade, while the rest of the Word-Bearers fell in behind them, delivering a cascade of support fire. The Terminators tore open every target they chose. Lines of tracer from massed combi bolters and the spinning muzzles of autocannons treading the bodies of the defenders. Ultramarines fell dead, red ruins marring the flawless blue of their power armor. Rubio felt a hand on his vambrace and turned to find Garrow pointing with his sword.
We can't hold this line. We have only a few moments before the Terminators enter the tunnel. We must pull back.
To where? Do we keep retreating down this tunnel until we reach the gates of Numinous? We have no cover in here. If we show them our backs, we will be cut down. He shook his head. The colors of Ultramar do not run.
Then we will die here. You will have defied one order to perish for another, and your battle brothers along with you.
Rubio's face twisted in annoyance. Damn you.
Well guys, I'm almost home now, so I'm gonna stop the stream soon. So thank you for watching. Yeah, see you later, I guess, for some gaming, maybe.